Well, good evening, Rian Kutsia from Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions here in Centurion in Pretoria. Tonight I am chatting again to Pierre and Gerrit, the tactical twins. And tonight we will be discussing bulletproof vests and your tactical jacket that you can carry all your stuff in. Gerrit, Pierre, good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Rian. Thank you.
Well, let's kick off. I'm going to let you guys do most of the talking. I think let's start with your bulletproof vest idea. Material that it's made of. Is there a shelf life on certain of those materials? What levels of protection do you get, and what does it mean? What are those plates made of? What different materials can you look at? If you could maybe explain the ins and outs of a bulletproof vest to us. Let's start with Gerrit, seeing as how you're on the screen right now.
Yeah, so I think for me it's a slippery slope. There's so many options available. Everybody's an expert, a Google expert, let's call it that. There's a big difference between, let's call it a tactical vest and a bulletproof vest, or a bulletproof plate, or a standalone plate, for instance. And I think there's a big misperception regarding that. Now, guys talk about a bulletproof vest, but it's not necessarily the vest that's, let's call it, bulletproof now. It's more about the plate that's inside it. So, talking about a tactical vest is something different. It's a normal vest that you wear with pouches for whatever you've got, mag pouches and ammo pouches and mat pouches and medical pouches and whatever, but it does not carry, or it does not have space for a actual plate, a protection plate. Can stop a bullet, yeah. That's just that, let's call it a tactical vest, for lack of a better word, for instance.
Yes.
Then you get an actual a plate carrier that actually you can actually insert a plate specifically to protect one's vital organs, that can stop a bullet at the end of the day, that protects your life. And I think that's the difference between a plate carrier and a tactical vest, for one. There's many wordings, whatever, but that's in simple, let's call it basic layman terms.
So, Pierre, would you say then it's, if you talk bulletproof vests, it's better to talk about a plate carrier than saying bulletproof vest?
Yeah, I think, and Rian, just to add to Gerrit, and I want to say the description and the wording around it, because as soon as somebody says bulletproof vest, they automatically assume that it's a vest that can protect you up to a certain level from bullets, and that usually refers to like a Kevlar vest, or a synthetic vest that can give you like call it a level 2 protection. And those you can get in different sizes. It looks like a winter jacket. You can get it as a concealed jacket that goes under your shirt. But those are Kevlar bulletproof to, I want to say, to like a level 2. As soon as you start adding different layers and that kind of stuff, then it can increase the level of protection. But again, the big misconception is, as soon as you see a vest in a store, they automatically assume that it's a bulletproof vest. In that most cases, it's either a tactical vest or a plate carrier instead of a actual bulletproof vest.
Yeah, I think just to give the viewers an example, this is a
Yes.
very basic standard plate carrier. This is not a bulletproof vest. That's the
Yeah.
difference.
Mhm.
Because this is just a normal canvas / material. There's nothing inside. I mean, you can fold this into a mini ball. So this is just material that you can put a plate inside, which turns into a plate carrier then, and the plate is a standalone unit that will give you protection. The actual
But that
material has got
very,
no rating, no safety precaution, or no level protection at all.
that jacket that you just showed us, I see it's got the MOLLE system on as well. So you can use that, add pouches as you see fit for your kit and plate.
Yes, and I think, and that's also a misperception, or where a lot of guys differ. Some type of protection, you need to have a standalone plate or a plate with your vest or your plate carrier, and that gives you a certain level of protection. For instance, the range that we do, not at all.
Mhm.
We go 100% on the plate itself. The plate gives you the protection.
Okay.
Our types of vests or plate carriers that we sell is irrelevant. The plates that we sell is standalone, and you will see it says on the plate itself as well. So your protection is the standalone. We never want to put somebody in jeopardy where they assume that the plate that I've got or the vest that I bought from this place or that place and whatever is interchangeable. But in actual case, the plate that I bought from company A, I interchange with this new vest that I bought here. And actually what it's supposed to do is that this vest goes with that plate, and that in total gives you, for instance, a level 3+++ protection.
Okay.
So the way we operate is your plate carrier that you buy from us is irrelevant. Your protection comes from the standalone plate on its own. And something that a lot of people actually do not realize, and that is for me so odd, is that the size of your vest. I mean, here's that basic one that I showed now. And here's a much bigger, what we call a very full, call it tactical vest now. It's got a lot of pouches, mag pouches here for an AR and a 9mm, pistol pouches. It's got different maps and whatever. It's a much bigger vest. So it fits bigger people like yourself, for instance. Let's just say that. Much better. Where this basic vest is a much cheaper option then as well. The difference is both those plate carriers, for instance, still uses exactly the same size plate. So the amount of protection that you will receive from those two different plate carriers is exactly the same. Because not because of the size of the vest itself. The plate itself does not change in size. It's the same plate. And a lot of people think, yeah, but because I've got a bigger vest now, I've got a lot more protection. No. Your plate is the main aim or the main thing that gives you the protection, unless you buy a vest that is rated for a level 1 or whatever protection. But in most cases, a lot of the vest itself does not give you protection. It is the plate behind the vest or inside of the vest that is the main protection.
That gives the protection.
Yeah.
Pierre, the vests that are made from Kevlar, that will typically stop a 9mm bullet, so a handgun bullet. So where does that fit into the greater scheme of things? Can you buy a vest like that and then add a plate to it as well?
Definitely. Again, it comes down to what level of protection you require. And I want to say almost like the circumstances and the factors that if you get into an incident, what level of protection you're looking for. Because I know a lot of the times guys prefer to get like a Kevlar vest that gives you like a level 2 to a level 3 protection. So call it like a pistol and an AK type of protection, but not a AR level of protection, just just in a sense that because of the difference in velocity of the bullet travels between an AR and an AK, it requires different call it protection levels. Because the AR is, for example, running way faster than what an AK runs. Therefore, your level of protection would be need to be a little bit higher. But yes, depending on what's the requirement. So, for example, like if you're looking for, or if you know that the possibility of only engaging in hand, I want to say like a handgun risk, then a Kevlar vest or a level 2 type of protection would be more than sufficient. But if you are, for example, like a guy in a cash and transit van and that kind of stuff, you want to go get proper protection against AK, pistol, and AR. So you would go for like a Kevlar vest, but then increase your level of protection by adding in either a ceramic plate or a steel plate or any of those additional plates, just so your level of protection can get increased. And I think also one of the big things is that people need to understand that steel plates, and that's usually referred to as a standalone plates, can take multiple rounds. Where if you consider like a ceramic plate, and there's so many variations and factors that you need to take into consideration. For example, like again, if you're looking for a higher level of protection, yes, it might be a little bit heavier. And if you want to take multiple rounds, again, go for a steel plate because that can take multiple rounds. Ceramic and Kevlar and those things, they can take, everybody's standard is a little bit different, but you're looking at like a 5 to 8 average round count on level of protection. Ceramic can even be a little bit less depending on how close the spacing is or how close the grouping is on the actual ceramic plate itself. That determines the amount of rounds it can absorb. For example, like ceramic is great in dispersing the energy compared to a steel plate, because you might get put on your ass if you're wearing a steel plate, where on a ceramic it might not put you on your ass. But again, now the steel plate can take multiple rounds, whereas ceramic, now you need to consider how close is the spacing, all that kind of stuff, because then it's like a 2-3 max and then you're done. So all those things you need to take into consideration when deciding, okay, cool, do I need only a Kevlar vest? Do I need a Kevlar vest plus something else? Do I need a plate carrier but a steel plate for multiple rounds? And also there's a couple of factors that you need to consider. But I mean, that's also where guys like us come into play to tell you, listen, where do you think you're going to need it? What's the risk potential? What type of calibers are you facing? Because that all depends on, okay, cool, this is the advice that we would give you on what to look for.
These Gerard, these plates, the ceramic ones, do they have a shelf life at all?
They actually do.
If they don't get shot, can they? Yeah. No, go for it.
Yeah, sorry for jumping in, Gerard. So ceramic is very similar to Kevlar. Kevlar is prone to sunlight and that kind of stuff, so it does decrease the lifespan of Kevlar, for example. So the average lifespan of Kevlar is between 5 and 7, depending on what wear and tear it's going through, exposure to elements and those types of things. Ceramic works on the same principle. So ceramics is a little bit higher. That can go from anything from like a 5 to 10 years, depending on, again, wear, tear, elements, all those types of things. And then steel plates, same principle. Steel plates, at the end of the day, is for me the safest bet when it comes to lifespan because it's steel. The only thing that you need to look after is the spalding around the steel. And I think that's also one of the massive misperceptions on, but I can go and buy a steel plate and grind myself a couple of steel plates. Yes, everybody can do that. But the biggest danger from a bullet impacting a steel plate is the ricochet or the shrapnel that comes off it. If you've got a straightforward plate, that energy needs to go somewhere. That bullet is either going to go up, down, left, right, whatever the case might be. And that is one of the biggest risks when it comes to protection. If the spalding that's supposed to grab hold of that fragments or the ricochet or the shrapnel is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, then you might just be bloody running with a Teflon pan as well, because it's going to give you the same type of level of protection. That is a massive risk that people need to consider looking at the spalding around it.
So at the end of the day, it's probably best to buy one, and you know what you get.
Yeah, and even that is you need to look at the composition of it. So you can get different types of variations where I've seen steel plates that got almost like a rubberizing around it, which also works great. And then, for example, you've got different ones that's got like a weaver synthetic coverage or spalding around the steel plate. So that it's almost like a bit of a two-pronged approach. One is to slow down the velocity of the bullet before it impacts the actual steel plate, and the second one is to actually grab hold of the fragments or the shrapnel. That makes a huge difference in the protection itself.
But I would still don't make your own. That is, if you're playing with your life or somebody else's life, just don't be a cheapskate on that. That's the worst possible move you can do. Now, I mean, we advocate as well. Even if you don't buy from us, I mean, that's not why we're here. That's the least reason why we started the company. If you want to buy a plate carrier, a bulletproof standalone a plate itself, buy it from a reputable company. There's lots of them in the country as well. Just buy it from somebody that's got all the NIJ and the Sun standards and you know all the that has ticked all the boxes and done the hard work. There is a lot of them in South Africa that's got all the qualifications and ticked all the boxes.
So what I had a plate carrier with steel plates. I don't know if the newer steel plates are thinner. Mine were thick ones like this, and that thing was heavy. I tell you what, if you have to wear that thing the whole night long, oh my goodness! When the sun starts rising in the morning, it feels like you're getting pulled into the ground like this. If you wear it for hours and hours, you know a lot about that one.
It's definitely the technology has changed, and I want to say probably the last 10 to 15 years. You can see the not the size, but the weight of the plates itself. And I mean, these days, you've got a different composition for super light plates. So, for example, like that one that Gerrit showed, that thing I think weighs like 1.1 kg. You can take like a 6 to 7 rounds. So it's a super lightweight plate. It makes it easier. A lot of companies and a lot of people still tend to go, well, what's the cheaper? What's financially something that's going to hit my profit margin line? I need to consider that. So therefore, I'm buying you the cheaper level of protection just because I need to look at my bottom line. But again, it does impact the level of protection that's available to the guys. So there is some guys that is running around with massive steel plates that is so heavy compared to guys that, as let's look at new technology. Yes, it might be a little bit more expensive, but your how can I say, the movability and the reaction and that kind of stuff doesn't impact your how can I say, your your ability to respond to a incident when it occurs.
Gerrit, can you just show me that plate again? Is that was a steel plate that you showed?
This is no. So this is the steel plate, weighs about almost 2.8 kilos, and this is the new
Okay.
ultralight, literally like 900 to 1 kilos, 900 grams to 1 kilo.
Also,
Super light.
wow.
And that
Okay,
gives
that
you the
makes
same
a-
level of protection.
Same level of protection, but it's pricier.
Yeah, no, it
But
comes
again,
with a price.
What sort
Um,
of cost do you start looking at, just for an idea, for those
So-
plates?
So, for example, like a steel plate, the heavier one, the 2.8 kg steel plate with proper spalding and stuff around it, you're looking at anything from around 1,800 to 2,000 rand a plate. And then, for
Okay.
example, that super light plate, that can range anything from 3.5 up to 4,000 rand per plate.
Okay. Is it a different composite steel or a
Yes.
different steel
Correct,
altogether?
yeah.
that they
So
use?
the I want to say the steel plate is it's actual steel plate itself, and then it's different to, I want to say, the steel that they use in manufacturing, that kind of stuff. They usually refer to like a Armor X steel.
Yes.
So it's a steel that, I want to say, the process in making that steel is completely different to the steel that
It's
they would
harder,
use
yeah.
in like a
Oh.
call
It's
it
not
building
your
a
normal mild
steel
steel you
cabinet.
buy from your local
Yeah.
hardware shop.
Yeah.
It's
And
still gonna suck taking around to it though. On your
Yeah.
chest or on
Oh
your back.
yes, you
No, no,
will feel
definitely,
it.
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, the other one is what they. I actually don't know the correct pronunciation, but that is I want to say it's a different composition that they actually use. So they
Mhm.
refer to it as like umpwe or yumpwe. It's actually spelled UHMWPE, and that's
Okay.
just the different. I want to say the different materials in the way that they actually then go and create this plate. So it's almost like a bit of a, if you look at like a mat, how it's interweaved, the different types of materials that can actually withstand a round.
Okay. So okay, so your vest, if you buy let's say you buy a level 2 vest and you add plates to it. So if you take the cheaper plates, you're gonna look at 1.5 to no, about 3 grand to 4 grand maybe for the steel plates. And if it's the thinner steel plates, you're gonna look at 6 to 7.
Like seven
Okay.
to 8.
And then a level 2 Kevlar vest on top of that.
So level 2 Kevlar vest can go anything between 3 and 5, again, depending on what you're looking for. Is it like a half is it an undercover? Is it a normal, like a winter type of jacket with insets in there as well? And then a lot of the times is what the guys require is that if, for example, you want to purchase they refer to it as like a soft armor plate. So soft armor means it needs to be worn with conjunction a Kevlar vest, for example, to give you a set level of protection. They actually require you to bring like a certificate or something from the Kevlar vest so that they can say,
Yes.
okay, cool, yes. Therefore, we can guarantee that it's going to be level whatever that that you end up using in conjunction. So those types of things the guys also need to consider, because the problem is that I get an old Kevlar vest from the 1990s, and now I just insert a ceramic plate or something, and I assume that now my level of protection is there. But I mean, this Kevlar vest was in the 1990s, so it's way past its due date on the replacement. So, and that's also where a lot of people then misjudge the level of protection that they're walking around with.
Okay. So in other words, by saying if you can either go for a Kevlar type of vest and add plates to it, or just a plate carrier that's got no stopping
steel plates.
capacity and just add plates to it. But on both you get MOLLE systems where you You can add pouches
can.
on the plate.
Again, it comes down to the Kevlar vest. So do you want to have a concealed vest, or do you want to have like a normal, a Kevlar plate carrier that comes with Moly attached, Moly webbing, so that you can actually go and add on details on them.
My preference is I'm a plate carrier guy with a standalone plates inside. That's my go-to.
You mean you really care about your heart?
Yes.
All the vitals.
Oh. And
that makes
we've got a saying as well: stop moaning and get a bit more fitter, and just wear it.
Yeah.
Just deal with it.
Just deal with the
that makes
pain.
sense.
Do more
I
stuff.
think also people, it's one of those things where it's a different matter if you walk around with, call it 6 kgs like this the whole time. That actually is, you can feel it. But because it sits so close to your body, you don't feel it. It is only that thing where you said, like in the morning where you suddenly realize, yes, I am actually a little bit tired.
Don't sit still. Keep walking.
Yeah, where you can realize this, my knees is a little bit tired, and I can feel like almost like the ground is pulling me a little bit. But yes, other than that, yeah, it's a different scenario walking around with a 6 kgs in your arms trying to hold that up.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
So if we look at purely tactical vest, if that's the correct term, that's just an equipment carrier.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's one of it's the same scenario. So depending on what you require it for, a lot of people try to put as much possible onto the vest, but the vest should be equipment carrier. It needs to be, yes, if you've got your plates and that kind of stuff, extra ammo. If you've got a pouch or something on the back, that's all good. But it comes down to that thing where you need to have enough, how can I say, enough kit on your belt that if you need to drop your vest and go, that you would be able to still endure a bit of a battle with just the kit that's on your belt itself. And I think a lot of the times people try to add equipment onto their vest, and then yes, it's going to tire you out, because now you've got this vest that's walking, you've got this here, and you've got your gun on your vest, and you've got extra ammos. Even if sometimes I see people carrying AR mags and that kind of stuff, but they don't have an AR on them, and I'm like, okay, but why are you doing that? You know, logical sometimes creeps out of people's normal common sense.
That's when that's for when people do that, you know, when people do that typical pose where they stand and pose with their legs, their feet apart, and their hands in front of them like this, so that their hands are resting on all the kit and it's out there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've got everything stacked in here.
I've got my iPhone also on here, and I've got my radio, and then I've got an additional pouch that's got some extra food and stuff in it. It doesn't make it feasible, and it slows down your movement and your capability. So a vest, yes, it's supposed to carry kit, but it's also not supposed to be a backpack.
It's not a weekend pack.
Yeah.
That's a separate bag.
Sure. Yes, that's a separate bag.
Rian, before you go on, I remember when I did, Pierre, when was it? We were in Charlie 21 on the lone operator course. It was Pierre, Charlie 21. So it was what's it now? 4 years ago. 21. That's how the system works. Yeah. And I remember on that one session we did scaling, for instance, one of the sessions. So if you want to join, go search the Fortis, then the lone operator course. And on the one session we did scaling where you climb over a wall, for instance. And we had vests on, and that was that story where you had pouches here and you had mag pouches there. Nobody had mags at that stage, but you had we had at that stage 9mm mag pouches for our firearms, pistols that we did training with. And we had medical pouches and TQs here and a radio here and whatever. And when we did that scaling for the first time, by the time reached the other side of the wall, everybody in our team stuff was on the other side of the wall. And it just shows you again the valuable lessons you learn of a proper defensive and tactical course. For instance, something like the lone operator. On that day, after that, everybody learned with your kit what works, what does not work, what do you add to your vest, and what don't you add to the vest. And I think through the whole lone operator course, and I mean, that's how our shop, the Tactical Twin shop, actually developed and evolved with the whole lone operator course as well. We actually know now what works and what does not work. You know, it doesn't help you have got this full tactical vest with all the bells and whistles, but the first wall, fence, container, bush, whatever you cross or have to go through or over, once you're over it, you've got nothing left, because simply it's not practical. It looks tactical, but it's not practical. And we learned all of that on the course. I mean, it's just a fantastic course in any case. It's just a little bit of a side story.
And then, well, I mean, it's true. You obviously, whether you're looking at the plate carrier system or just the tactical vest, the equipment carrier system without any protection, you need to look at things like weight distribution as well, and obviously placement of certain pouches, which stuff that you might need first, like extra mags, tourniquet, so that you don't have to start searching around when the heat is on to try and find or try and remember where you put this. So that is obviously an important part of planning your vest for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's I think that's exactly what Gerrit mentioned is on the lone operator. It gives you the opportunity to test your kit and see what works and what doesn't work. Because unfortunately, it is that thing. A lot of guys are like, "Ooh, I want this vest that can take 12 mags, AR 12 AR mags and 10 9mm mags and an IFAK and a radio and a this and a that." And again, once you run through a bush, then you realize, okay, well, now I've got 3 mags. So you need to test
that clip or that Velcro strap or whatever, it's not working. We actually need to look at different type of fitting or whatever. And I mean, that's if you look at the tourniquets, we've got 3 different tourniquet clips or holders or fasteners that we've tried and tested now. And the ones that we sold 4 years ago versus what we're selling now is not the same anymore, because we've via lone operators and whatever, we've tried and tested them thoroughly now to actually know what's working or what's not working.
Well, what difference between and now? What clips do you prefer using now, or with all the knowledge that you've gained in the meantime?
So for me, what was interesting is if I can show you.
Then next to you're looking for a strappy.
Yeah, but it's a soft and hard tourniquet.
Top. At the top.
But the one was I don't want to waste too much time now, but anyway, so the one we had was a very hard tourniquet holder. Yeah, the Kydex holder. It almost looks like a Kydex holster or holder for your tourniquet. And then you've got the soft one. And for one, I remember I had on my vest here on top, I had a very hard tourniquet holder for my tourniquet, and it was open, so you just simply pull it out, and it looked good, and it was fairly easy to operate because you simply just pulled out the tourniquet. the problem with that was it was bulky and it was fairly not bulky, but also sticking out fairly far on my vest, my plate carrier.
I see. Okay.
And that was one of the things that stayed behind after the first wall. So I changed that. I switched that back to the back of my belt, my battle belt, and then I switched that over to a even smaller than this soft holder pouch. So the tourniquet is still here, but it's now in a much more flexible pouch, which still, it's one clip and it's out, so it's easy. But it takes a lot less space. It's not so bulky. It doesn't protrude so far out, and it makes it a lot easier. So I mean, it's that practical stuff that you learn over time, and luckily via the lone operator courses you get to test actually.
So there'd be a difference between a vest for a policeman, a security guy, somewhere like cash and transit guys, and a civilian in terms of what they carry.
Yeah, definitely. I think the circumstances and that kind of stuff does actually play a role in it. If you look at a military vest, for example, that's always, it can take a little bit more equipment and that kind of stuff. But again, that works in a scenario where you would be in the field. So it's different to a police officer that needs to get into a vehicle where he can't have too much kit on his back, for example, because now you can't sit in a seat, or you need to sit on the actual steering wheel or stuff. So yeah, all that stuff does play a role, even like on a security guard and a cash and transit, those types of scenarios. You need to look at the kit and you need to look at the actual vest / plate carrier to decide, okay, cool, where is it going to be? Something, for example, like a policeman would require a Kevlar, because the possibility of him getting into a handgun situation is a lot higher than a military man that maybe just need to require a actual plate carrier to carry more kit with a steel plate in the inside. Same for cash and transit. Same scenarios. You need to consider exactly what's the scenarios that you're going to encounter.
Okay. You guys have, I think we've covered the vest, both of them quite extensively and in detail. I think the last thing that I just want to get from you, we included in the video, is the different levels to think what it means in terms of.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. Yeah, so I'll jump in there. So it depends again on what you're looking for in the level of protection. So for example, like if you look at like a level 2, that usually refers to like a pistol type of scenario. It's only going to handle hand calibers type of protection. And then if you look at like a level 3++, or even a level 3+++, it actually gives you protection to like a pistol, AK, like a R1. But usually when we talk about a R1, we talk about a 51mm ball point. And then like a R4, R5, which is a 5.56 or 223 round, but again, a 39mm versus a 45mm. And then you actually start looking at the different types of scenarios. So if, for example, you go to like a level 4, where you need to look at the weight of the bullet that you need protection from. So it can be like a 7.65, but now you need to look at like a 143 to 148 grain type of bullet. So for that, you need like a level 4. And if you go like a level 5, then it is a level 4 plate, but in conjunction with soft armor to give you additional, how can I say, more weight, more level. So, and there's different things that you need to take into consideration: the distance, the velocity of the round, the weight of the actual bullet itself. So all those things actually brings down to what type of level of protection you would require.
You require. Okay. Gentlemen, if you've got nothing to add, I'm going to conclude with that. I think that was a pretty workman-like discussion, and you guys shared a lot of valuable info with us. I thank you for that, and I thank you for your time. And just for the viewers, if the content was worthwhile for you, please remember to click that like and subscribe button so we can grow the channel and get the message out to more people. Gerrit, Pierre, thank you guys so much and have a nice evening.
Great, thanks
Thank you very much, yeah.